It'll get stronger too, because right now it's probably drying out,
Yeah.
right? Probably that roll
But once it dries out, then the crack's gonna.
it's gonna open up again, right?
Yeah.
So
We gotta do the binding while it's still
yes,
damp.
yes.
Yeah.
What I would do is actually, because these aren't fully closed yet,
Mhm.
I would keep it in a box without the towel to let it close slowly
Okay,
as opposed to more rapidly. And then if you don't do a binding, you just store it in an airtight container that way with a rubber band, and it should never open up again, or it would take a long time. It would stay in that condition.
Huh.
You know, the crack would be closed,
okay.
right? Because it just it just needed a little humidity.
Hmm.
But the bindings will help.
I think I
Did you
left
s-
all the stuff that you gave me in my
Oh, yes,
car,
yeah, let's-
so
yeah.
I think I left it in my car, so.
Oh, no worries. You can give it to me later.
Are you
I don't
sure?
need it.
You don't need it
I don't
today?
think I need it now. Yeah.
I've
We're
got
moving on to another
glue and
repair.
X-Acto knife.
What's that?
I've got glue and X-Acto knife and scissors and.
How long would it take for you to?
Maybe like 20
I don't need
minutes.
it. I don't need it. Yeah.
Did you say you don't put the wet towel on the crack itself?
You know, in a case of a very tough crack that doesn't want to close after you put it into a closed container with a cup of water or a bowl of water, if it doesn't close overnight, then you need to add a little more humidity. And I would do things slowly, like put it next to a wet towel, and then it will slowly close, and that still doesn't close the crack, like the one that Lydia had, a big one, that you can wrap a damp towel around the bamboo. Making sure that the crack does not touch the towel, because it'll grab the towel. And then you have to pull the towel up, and it'll grab onto some lint, right? And then then you might bind your flute with some lint in the crack, or you let it open up again and pull out the lint. That's happened to me a few times, and other people have mentioned that. So if you get such a tough piece of bamboo, it's gonna grab the lint, you know?
I've left it in for too long sometimes, and you will get mold growth.
And, I mean, you gotta keep an eye on
You
it,
will,
right,
yeah.
right, like within, 2 or 3 days, you should know very well. So, let's see, I think depending on how yesterday's went, I should assess who is actually gonna work on their instrument today, or whose instrument needs work. And I could use those instruments, and maybe people who were thinking that they were just observers, can I see the hands, who are observers? 1, 2, 3, 4, and everybody else thinks they're gonna work on an instrument.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like your opinion on this.
Yes.
We're doing
Okay.
joints, right?
Yes, right, so
Not
it could
smoking
be.
them.
Well, let's not
Or
rule that
maybe.
out yet. Let's not rule that out.
This is the laws in Texas.
This is the Shakuhachi festival.
Sunday is 420.
Yeah.
Alright, let's move.
And we'll see how this workshop goes. So knowing that, I'll assess the easiest way to address this, the quickest and simplest way to address the people's, the simplest repairs. That could be a demo that everyone does simply on their own, and then it could be just applying a coat of lacquer on your joint, and that's all it is. And then you've done that. And then we'll move on to a tough one, which I think is Scott's joint, which rocks, and that happens often with old flutes.
Wow.
The joints rock, they become, non-concentric again, where it doesn't,
Yeah.
they're not round anymore, they don't fit each other. That's common actually for old flutes, because grass changes shape over time, right? So depending on how old the joint was cured, that particular joint could be from a different piece of bamboo, all this stuff. There's many factors that contribute to why joints don't fit anymore. They dry out, the lacquer's worn, maybe it wasn't made well in the beginning, but we're gonna address it with that one. That's a difficult one, and that might be a demonstration that everyone watches, right, and how I would approach that repair. So let's see, does anyone think the joint just needs a coat of lacquer?
I think
Just-
mine probably does.
Okay,
It's
let's just
it's
assess each
just a
one
little-
first.
It's just a little loose.
Let's see. Yeah, look, there's a very slight rocking, but one coat of lacquer could fix all that. And so we'll do those first. And I think this was just a coat of lacquer. And so you know how loose this is. This is quite loose.
Yeah.
We'll put a coat of lacquer on, and if you guys come back tomorrow, because we didn't have to put the flutes into a humid, container, you could test to see what that one coat did. maybe needs 2. Oftentimes, really old flutes need 2 or 3 coats. Ryan,
We
you
saw
have,
that yesterday, but it's still kind of loose. I don't know if that,
what is loose, that connection or the?
the connection, no, 'cause
Oh, yeah, so if we were to put lacquer on this today, you can't have the flute back until tomorrow.
okay.
Cause it needs to kick over, the lacquer needs to kick
Right.
over. It could kick over in a really nice, do you have just observing or loose joint?
Just observing.
Huh?
Just observing.
Oh, just observing, okay. In humid, like 70, 80 degrees, 70% humidity to 70, 80 degrees, the lacquer will kick over in 2 hours. But it won't be strong enough to really be something that you can, put your joint off and on. I would say overnight. But if you need it right away, it's dry to the touch. Someone to play the flute, like if you had emergency repair. And,
I think the joint is fine.
so you don't need,
No, it was the.
it's the Utaguchi?
Yeah. it's
Were
the
we going to
Utaguchi.
do something with that today?
I don't know.
Tomorrow's the Utaguchi day.
Oh, it's
Remember?
tomorrow.
I'm sorry, did I make a mistake with you?
That's
Are
okay.
you talking about that little chip?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I would say, I don't know if I wanna pass this around, if you're comfortable, but this is the kind of chip I would address tomorrow. Let me hold it.
Okay.
It's so tiny, but it might affect something. And that might, you see that little chip?
No.
See, it's
Oh,
so
I got
tiny,
it.
it's so tiny.
Oh, yeah, I see
That,
it, right on the edge.
Right. It's so tiny, and you can see it from this side.
Yeah.
That it might affect it or might not. And I would say generally speaking, for most people, it wouldn't affect it.
Really?
But for somebody who really knows their flute, might say that it affects how I'm doing some things, right? So, and unless that person really knows their flute and can say with absolute, like confidence that it affects some things they're doing, then I could say, yes, we can fix that. But if you don't know, and you're the owner, you just think, oh, I think it's, then,
It's been like that since I've had it.
right,
so,
right,
yeah.
so.
I don't know what I would
But
be missing.
That's the kind of repair that we can't do ourselves, right?
You possibly could do yourself. If I was just focusing on this and it was probably I needed more time and space, right? I could show you exactly how to do this yourself. I would go step by step, right? But I would say, unless you know it's causing you a problem, it's not causing a problem.
And the only thing with the joint is if I put it down for a while, if it's a month or two, then it just completely. But
Yeah,
after playing, for an hour or two,
that's
it just
interesting.
come back.
Yeah, so your bamboo is really responding to the environment, right? Because if you don't play it, it's not getting humidity,
Right.
your breath moisture, your hand, exposure to the air. If you're just keeping it in a place, it's drying out.
He's holding you accountable for your practice.
It does. It very much does. Yeah.
Yeah,
that
and
was a-
thus bamboo shrinks when it
Yeah,
dries
right.
and joints get loose. Okay, so can I see hands where it's just tightening the joint? 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 4, just tightening. We're gonna do work more on yours, but just a coat of lacquer to tighten.
Fair enough.
4?
I have just a loose ring.
Oh, let's see,
The
the bottom one? Yeah, we could just glue that, but.
Okay, I didn't know what to do
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
we'll do that, so, okay, so actually, you know what? That's the simplest thing we're gonna do, so we'll do that first. And that's part of all this joint work, I'll talk about. So, would the best thing be for us to pull this table out and so that everyone could, or should I work on the floor, which I do often, and then can everyone see?
What's more comfortable for you?
Actually, for this situation, what would be more comfortable would be if I stood behind this table as a demo, right? So,
You need help pulling?
maybe I need a hand, kind of just pulling the table out, so we'll. Let's put this, let's see, we can keep the stuff on the table, we just need to move the whole table out. Is there anything else in the way?
Come straight out.
Yeah, come straight out. Great. Awesome. And you guys could make yourself more comfortable around the table if you want to move in. And just an announcement, these were in the room last night when I left. That belongs to anyone? No? We'll just put it here.
first shakuhachi I got from Ronnie Selden, the joint was actually degrading, like there were pieces coming off of
Yep.
it. And so before he, whenever, handed it over, the ownership, he sent it to you to repair, and when it came back, it was like a new joint. It was like totally new. It was like amazing,
Oh,
because it
thank
was
you.
literally crumbling.
Well, thank
apart
you,
before.
thank you. No, I've done that because so that's part of restoration, right? And replacement. When sometimes the G plaster and rushi falls away from the joint, the tenon, the male part, because it moves a little bit, right? And so the plaster and lacquer on it shifts. Over time, it chips off, like peeling paint on a bathroom wall, right? And that's gonna absorb breath moisture. If you all notice, your interior of the board gets a lot of beads of moisture. That soaks into that bamboo and it starts to degrade and mold and, decompose. I don't know. And then I end up, having to take those off and replace, or there's a lot of ways to do that depending on the level of disintegration or, yeah. So yeah, I just did a recent joint like that in a master Yamaguchi Shiro flute, or if you don't seal that bore right there, it absorbs on the moisture and causes degradation. Okay, let's see.
Here's says Ronnie wasn't too picky about loose joints, so if it's not falling off, it's fine.
If you know Ronnie, bless his soul. Let's see. Maybe just making sure I have a clean workspace. And I want to present to you how simple some repairs can be. We'll leave that. How simple some repairs can be. Thank you. I don't mind if you guys take video or photos, because, keeping records is really important for us to learn. And I don't have any issues with you guys recording. I mean, we're lucky we have some video of the masters playing music, right? It's like, Great. Let's see, the first thing we're gonna do, the easiest thing was Paul, right? We're gonna glue that joint, and it's very simple. Very often, with these metal rings, bamboo shifts, right? Like wood, shrinks and swells with the temperature shifts, like your door gets squeaky, right, in your home, or the drawers, and it's made out of wood, it shrinks. And so what happens is, this metal ring on this piece of bamboo is loose because the bamboo shrank a little bit, but the metal stayed the same, right? So depending on what it is, I mix two-part epoxy if it's like very loose to fill gaps. This situation is pretty snug. I just have to move it up a bit and drop a dab or two of super glue. I mean, it's pretty safe, and if you need to take it apart, you could just knock it out with a little hammer and do a total refurbishing, but we won't need to do that. So if you want to see what I'm doing, I guess feel free to come up, but if you can't, or it doesn't matter, you can stay where you are. But I don't have any, it's just right on the edge of maybe it being a little too loose. I might mix two-part epoxy, but that could be a future thing, right?
I was wondering, it's like, you probably could just leave it alone, right?
Well, I wouldn't leave it alone because it'll fall off,
Okay.
and it'll, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And it moves, and then I go to put it
Right,
together,
right,
I
it
line it
bothers-
up wrong, and I'm like, what's going on?
it bothers you, right? So
Yeah,
you don't want anything to bother you. So it's it's a little loose, but it's not. When I pull it out, okay, so it's looser. What I'm gonna do is basically drop some, maybe a ring of glue around it. And gently, you know, when I have my nozzle of the glue here, I just kind of go this way.
Can you clean it off if you get it in the wrong spot?
You know what? Once you put the glue on, you want to just,
What if it drips onto the bamboo?
well, that's why I was very careful.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm worried about me.
Yeah, no, so being a craftsman is like you realize that things you care about everything you do, and it takes more effort to clean up your mess than to actually do the craft, right? Just keep that in mind. It takes more effort to clean up the glue, to clean up a bad cut, to clean up messy stuff than to actually do a minor, very minor, mindful work. So
Just be careful.
just take it slow and just like you saw what I did. It was very careful to be, you know, like I wasn't going, you know, like Paul. Here you go.
Okay.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so flutes that need a coat of lacquer, and like Lydia's, anybody else's? Paul, Lydia's, Charles, Tom.
So I have Teflon in there.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty snug already. Teflon is a great thing for if you have a loose joint. If you don't know what Teflon is, who knows what Teflon is?
It's plumber's tape.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about plumber's tape?
It's like for shower heads. So they don't leak. Put a shower head on the pipe.
Anything else about plumber's tape?
It's joints in
Yes. Anything else?
It doesn't belong there.
No, it does when it's leaking. Great thing about plumber's tape is it's non-adhesive. It fits to, it's like a shapeshifter. It fits to the joint. And I would recommend this over anything because if you use any other tape, there's adhesive. And in the past, the adhesive becomes hard, like rock, and then it starts to crumble and dig into the urushi of the joint. And it actually destroys joints. So don't use masking tape or scotch tape. The adhesive dries it out horribly. Okay, so we have three, is it 3 flutes? Quite beautiful to behold. So this is why I love my work. I get to look at these beautiful instruments. Clean. So,
Where's my bottle of water?
you know what? Somebody left this water here yesterday.
for a reason.
Funny how that
They
works
knew
out.
you needed it.
They knew I needed it. So,
That's extra classy water too.
yeah. So basically, you have to watch out for the solvents. If you use solvents to clean, it can affect the urushi so that urushi doesn't cure, or cause it to like kind of bubble up or something. Not bubble up. What is it? Not sort of like pools of, not like pool up or something. So I think water is a great thing. It just cleans it very well. And if you just rub it a few times and get the edge, like I dig my fingernail in there and get any sort of grease, if somebody used grease. And when I touch it with the other hand, it's quite clean, right? Then I wipe my oil off my finger. So I'm just gonna do that, and I'm gonna dig into the insides of these. So cleaning is very important.
Perry, if you had to use a solvent, are there any that you know don't affect the urushi in a bad way? Like
You know-
alcohol or something, or?
I don't know, because there's so many different kinds of, oh, sorry, Tom. Yeah, just hang on to that. You see how I'm cleaning out some old oil from the edge, from the corner of that, corner of the what is it called? The
Mortise.
mortise, thank you, the mortise, sorry.
Water antenna.
Yes. Yes, so I'm gonna, that's pretty clean. You can just feel that it's clean.
Do oils on your fingers affect the urushi?
That's why I'm wiping it off after even I touch it, right? Ooh, look at that. So, metal, if there's like a The urushi doesn't like metal, doesn't stick to metal, doesn't cure well on metal. Right? Unless there's a special kind of urushi. Okay. Just make sure. It's a pretty clean joint, Charles. Okay. Oh, did I not do that one? The interior of that one? Thank you. Oh yeah, I could feel a little bit of a film. Another way to do this is soap and water and dishwashing liquid. I've had a lot of
Alcohol
success.
wouldn't be.
I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know how because alcohol is a kind of a chemical, and urushi is a natural thing. Urushi comes, you all know, from the urushi tree that's related to poison ivy. It's the resin that comes from the tree. It's a very natural thing that polymerizes with humidity, which cures, dries. It doesn't take to dirty surfaces. It shows every speck if you have a dust. If you have dust of any kind on the speck, it shows. Okay. So.
Because it's poison ivy, how long should you have it dry before you play it again?
If it were, a lot of people recommend at least 2 weeks of it in the box, slow, like regular, not too wet, just regular, ideal, like 70% humidity to like 70%, 70 degrees. That's kind of ideal. Because it just allows the whole to cure as long as it can. But it's said that urushi can take as long as a year to fully cure, right? And I was, like, some people are allergic to it even after it's cured for many years. Yeah, yeah. So, Barry, what happened, Barry?
I haven't gone home and done the olive oil treatment to my flute yet.
So, Barry, you played the flute recently, right? And it gave you the rash.
Yeah, probably 34-year-old flute.
Still gave you a rash.
Yeah, it's the second time this happened to me.
So you're actually, in my experience, you're one of like 2% of the population where you're that allergic to it. Most people
Yeah, I'm
play a
super
flute
allergic.
right away. Most people can play flute. Some people are allergic to it when it's fresh.
But most flutes were fine. It's just, I don't know what some makers did. Maybe it's not even urushi, maybe it's something else.
That's giving you the rash?
I guess it's urushi, yeah.
It's definitely urushi. It's definitely urushi. This is commercial urushi, right? From basically everyone buys it from the tube. People in Japan, there's some factories that makes commercial urushi, and there's some families that still make urushi in their family shop. It's pretty amazing. I visited a family in Tokyo who was still an urushi family. It was just amazing when you walk into their home, which is like, I mean, their home is, the bottom is their storefront, right? But they live upstairs. And there's all this lacquer, downstairs, and big tubs, and you can walk in there and you can smell it, and you're thinking, wow, the whole family has to live with this urushi. But my kids grew up with it, and they're totally never had an issue, right? My kids grew up around me using urushi. I would work on flutes, and I would then make a salad, and didn't even wash off the urushi. And we were all eating urushi, like in some ways. But so just to give you a little more info, this is the filter paper, right? So, something was leaking. Anyway, in a very high, when it's really important to do clean work, I would filter. I didn't bring my plate. Anyway, this will work. You would do it one of these sheets, I won't do it now, because we don't actually need to do that with the joints, because the joints get pushed to get, the lacquer gets worn. But when it's on the surface of some fine plate or furniture, really stuck together somewhere. Anyway, one of these sheets, you squirt the urushi on here, you roll it up a little bit, and you twist it, and then
Oh,
you strain the urushi. You twist it, and it starts to drip out. And you twist it and you twist it. And this is just a small amount. Now, people who use a lot of urushi has a machine where they're twisting like this, and it's just, they would strain this whole tube, I'm just straining a bit at a time, because I only use a bit at a time.
What's the purpose of straining it? I mean, doesn't it come out ready to paint?
Some do. When you pay more for a tube that's already strained, you pay more for it. But even then, if you're really worried about a really clean surface, you should strain again. Just because any impurity, will show up as a dot, like a raised bump. Like any sort of pigment that wasn't mixed well. Because all of it is I have natural urushi, just the resin. Then I have the red, which I'm almost out of, has red pigment in this Shiwai urushi. So this is pre-mixed, but I have to strain it because the pigment might have settled in certain ways in the tube. And this is black, really hard black urushi for the joints. It's very hard, so we're gonna use this today for the joints. I like to use this urushi. A lot of the old Kinko players have a brown amber, if you notice, on the inside, and that's the Shiwai probably. So anyway, we're not gonna do this straining. Let's see. I have used a lot of Japanese brushes, but you know what? I kind of destroy them, and I hear a lot of people do. They just could take a lot of, we just overuse them, right? So I just started to buy Western brushes because they're cheaper, fine sable brushes, very soft, fine sable brushes. And you don't need anything bigger than this, really, right? Because oftentimes, we're just going like this. So, for this next step, I could demonstrate one, and if any one of you with a flute here wants to do your own, you're totally welcome to.
I'd love to try one.
You would like to try?
Yeah.
Great. Now, you've never had an allergic reaction to urushi, right?
No.
As long as you don't touch the paint, and rub it on your face, I think you'll be fine.
I'll try to
Most
avoid
people will be fine, but probably Barry, no. Barry, I would say you should step back. Because even when I open the tube, you might smell the urushi.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And that smelling the urushi means it's around you who are very sensitive,
You
Just
can
a
go
warning.
look in through the window.
I wouldn't go that far
I need
back.
a bubble.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far back.
Oh, boy.
You still use those
Somebody needs to stand by
poison
with
ivy
that,
wipes
yeah.
and then soap and water sometimes.
I don't anymore. When I first started doing this 30 years ago, I was getting little rashes because the oil would just touch my hands, even though I didn't touch it. And I would get this rash. I'm going, wait, I didn't even touch it. It's because the fumes landed on my hands.
Expose the fumes.
Yeah.
I keep poison ivy shampoo in the house. And
Okay.
after I'm done doing anti-urushi, I'll fully just do it just to be safe. Because I did have a time where I got a little too cocky. I did 7 bores at one time, and
Ooh,
just
yeah.
the vapor 3 hours of that, it was all over.
The longer you're exposed to it, the more likely you will get a rash.
But there was one time when you recommended using it on the flute for folks.
Yes, now,
if they bought a flute.
For Barry, if you want to try a Technu wipe, which is the poison ivy wipe, that would
Yeah.
remove the oils from your flute.
Yeah, I tried that.
You tried it? Didn't work? Wow. Okay, so I told Barry to rub olive oil around the top bore to lift the old urushi oil right off the lacquer, because it needed to be washed when it was made, but it wasn't washed. So the old urushi oil is on the lacquer even after 30 years. The oil will lift it off in the dishwashing liquid to clean that off. Yeah. And do that twice. Yeah. And see what happens.
Is that a
Okay,
flute
so
you bought?
Yeah,
Oh.
I used flute, an old flute,
okay.
nice flute.
Let's see. Oh, you know what I should set up? I need to set up an area where no one is gonna touch it tomorrow. Let's see. You know what? We're gonna put it on that chair. We're gonna put a sign up on it saying, "Do not move this chair." On there.
Do not move this chair or you will get poisoned.
Yeah, do not touch this chair.
That will solve the whole problem.
So this is my in a pinch. You basically need to put the flutes, and I didn't bring here obviously my whole system, But basically, I'm just gonna wrap it with a wet towel, you know, and kind of fill it up with air and close it, and that'll do it. Yeah, in a pinch, this is what we'll do. But normally I have a box, a wooden box, and uruyo box, I think what's called. I forgot. It's a special urushi curing box. But any contained. Well, the traditional box is wood because then the whole thing kind of is humid. The walls of the wooden box is humid, and so you can also use a cardboard box. If you wrap the cardboard box in a plastic, you know, as long as you're keeping it airtight for, you know, again, ideal situations like this, it might cure in 2 hours. Kick over where you can touch it. Overnight is ideal because it gets really hard. Yeah. So, okay, here we go. Let's put other one, I'm gonna soak this rag and put it next to there, so there's a lot of humidity. And we're gonna lay the bamboo away from the cloth, we'll figure it out in a minute. And that bit of humidity is all we'll need. So, another way again is if things were stable, you could put a cup of water in there or a bowl of water. Okay, let's see. We'll do one flute at a time. Let's make sure. I know what I'll do. I'll put a barrier so that the towel doesn't touch the flutes, the wet towel. Just be a barrier. Okay. Great, here we go. Black finish urushi. These cost anywhere from $30 to $50 starting price online. And they come in many different grades. Finer urushi made from a family in Japan could be, you know, $100 a tube, easily. And again, we're not gonna filter it because we're not concerned with the visual, you know. It's gonna be rubbing against two things. See.
It's not what they call low allergy.
This is not low allergy.
This has skull and crossbones on it.
I can see now, I don't know if you wanna come up that close. There are little bumps in here as I smooth it out. Yeah, that doesn't really matter in our situation. It might even be good because it gives the
friction in the
connection
joint.
some friction, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're not filtering. Do you see little bumps?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so those are pigment things, I think, or just other impurities that fell into the tub while they were mixing. This has gone through straining, but it's still, you know. So if it really mattered to you, you would strain again. So basically,
So let me ask you, if you put it on too thick, what happens?
it wrinkles. Have any of you seen wrinkled urushi in boars and stuff like that? Old flutes that are wrinkled were done by a monk that just slathered it on and didn't really have the skills. They just kind of slathered. But thinner is better. Yeah, but you just kind of have to find the line between what is too thin. Because you want to build layers. Layers are stronger than one thick. Yeah, many thin layers are stronger than one thick layer. Yeah. So basically, I do this to kind of make sure I find a thin layer, not too thin, and just what feels like not thick, right? Doesn't feel thick. So basically, oh, go ahead.
So this is the flute I had the Teflon tape on.
Right.
Should you check that to see the looseness or?
Pretty loose, huh?
It's a little loose, I guess, huh?
Let's check tomorrow if you come back to see if we
Okay.
need another coat. It could be that one coat did it. You might need 2 or 3 coats. And by the time we leave here, if you need another coat, just wait, put the Teflon back on, or, you know, if it needs. Yeah, should we do this?
Yeah.
Are we ready? So the beautiful thing is, I'm gonna switch boxes here. About repairing shakuhachi, I like is you want the right box, right, when you're doing things. So I do everything on this box.
Oh,
You saw yesterday,
special
right?
box.
You know, and here longer, and I do inlays and I file. It's just such a wonderful thing to have. So here we are, lacquering, a very different part of restoration. I'm just gonna go from the very base, that's all I need, gently, and make sure I don't get it everywhere, so that I don't have to clean it up. Yeah? Okay, so from the base, I basically do the brush stroke. And I can feel it maybe needs a little bit more. So, in a few minutes, it'll be really smooth, because the lacquer is sort of like self-smoothening, self-flattening. Let's leave this out and see what happens in a few minutes. I'm gonna finish that one, which is this one.
So you do the inside too?
Well, yes, both sides. So the male, female side. Yeah. And the same thing, you kind of feel where the end is. And because I'm not using a lot of lacquer, I'm just using just enough, I'm not worried about cleaning up too much, right, if it goes over. And then the brush can find the end, right? The brush can sort of find the end. Or you could just go like, look and roll, and you could just see by the edge what's covering. Now, sometimes I do the circular thing. I hold the brush and I do this, and that's fine too because you get the full coverage. But afterwards, I make sure I pull it out this way because sometimes when you, for some reason, earlier when I said it's self-flattening, when you do it inside a ring like this, it doesn't actually flatten and it retains the rings, which is kind of odd. I don't know why that does that, but I want to pull it back out because then we really feel a smoother fit. And you know, if there's a problem, we know what the problem is. But when there are rings, it might cause friction and fit well, but then it might also wear away quicker. So, this one is done now, and I'm just gonna put it into the bag carefully, or place it in here. And we're gonna figure out a way to make sure we'll figure out a way to make sure it's all nice and clean. Okay, the next one. Does anybody want to try this? Lydia? No? You might.
I'm very
I wanna
allergic
try.
to it, yeah.
Let's see, this is Lydia's flute. Do you want to try it? Is it okay?
Yeah, feel free.
What's your name?
Bill.
Bill, you okay with trying it carefully? Just not messy, because then cleaning up, cleaning up is a problem actually, because then I don't want to get the urushi on my fingers as I'm wiping, and
Oh, I get it.
right? You know, so
Cleaning
that's
up
what.
is very hard.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you shouldn't try it. I mean, if it was your flute, then it's your
Yeah,
prerogative.
if this is my food.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll do
Especially
Lydia's. Same thing, just carefully. There was really no wear on this joint at all, right? It's relatively new. Like somebody had painted urushi on this not that long ago, I could see. It just dried out on you. And that's why it was falling out and cracked. The whole flute dried out.
Yeah.
And the top. Actually, I'm gonna do the circle thing like this, just to make sure I have it all. Then, actually, I usually have a lamp, which I didn't bring with me, a shop lamp, because you know it's not like seeing the work that you're doing. very clearly. I'm gonna put this one here. And Charles, you wanna do this, right?
That's okay.
Of course, come on. You wanna do it from your side?
Either way.
You come on over here. And then you can use, my box.
This is just for me.
So there's, you feel out the brush, there's a thick part, to feel out how you think that, then you can flip the brush around too, and it's not too thick, and err on the thin side, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Right, just move it along, and one stroke is all you need as long as it covers it. Make sure you don't touch any of the rushi.
Don't have you reach.
It may be funny, but people do.
Do you buy allergy stuff for today?
Yeah, just once over. You don't need to redo what you've already done.
Okay.
Right.
It's one of those weeks.
Oh yeah. So if you can't see, feel free to hold it up to your face. That part, and rest it. For example, or can you? And just rest one end on here.
Okay.
Well, actually, this end like this, so that way you can still turn. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I always tell people that I'm teaching, use the box. The box is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, any way you want, if it works better that way. I just didn't have my lamp, and I went, oh, I can't really see well with my lamp. That particular. Try not to get it inside the bore, but just but obviously the mortise side is fine. And then pull it back out.
Is that the same
Yes.
lacquer that you would use inside the board?
It could be, depending on, there are a lot of different lacquers, colors, and grades. This one says finishing black, which is, you could use this grade because it finishes glossy. There are other blacks that are like intermediate levels where you would paint other layers on top of that, which you wouldn't finish with.
Is there a difference between the red and the black besides the pigment?
There could be, because there are different, again, grades and levels of where they're using it, because there are finishing levels, and there could even be a red, well, I'll take that, a red that's not a finishing level. So, yeah, let me place it in there gently, because in case you could, I've done this so many times that I knocked roots over in there.
Barry, when you were rotating, what part
Very nice.
were you applying the urushi to when you were
Oh,
rotating
myself.
the?
On this one.
Yeah, on that.
So when I was rotating it, I put the brush where the end of the mortise is.
That smaller.
Right there, the end of
Circle.
not into the bore, and then I rotated in there. Yeah, and again, the trick is to use less than more, because you don't want to clean up and get urushi drips. That some of us have seen in those old flutes that are wrinkled, right? That's too much urushi. Okay, so we're gonna leave that. You know what? Let's see what happens. I'm just gonna close this a little bit right now. Actually, what would help, I realize, is I'm gonna put something else here so that the bag doesn't collapse into it. I will do that later. So that's that much. That's all you need to do if you have a loose joint. That's all you need to do. Yeah?
Can you take a look, tell me what you think about it, Dale, there. Is that a little on the looser side? Is that too loose?
It's not too loose,
too
but
bad.
I mean, if you want, we could put a layer on it now. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do that, yeah.
Give them the work over anyway.
Do you think I should put a layer on it?
This is that moment when you meet a doctor at the party. Drink more water.
Take your vitamins.
Yeah, I think it's.
You don't need it, no. It's quite snug when it's in, yeah. And then it's perfect, we'll bind it tomorrow, that crap.
Yeah, that's fine. fresh and new.
Oh, yeah, and somebody just translated a hanko for me on this flute that I didn't have. It was called Su Resurrection. On another flute that I had, I couldn't read it.
Oh, very cool.
And Zhong Hao, I don't know if any of you know Zhong Hao, he's a great translator for Shakuhachi hankos. He looked it up and said, oh.
ZZ?
ZZ, you know ZZ? He translated it as Su Resurrection. He goes, that's really rare. I've never seen that on a hanko. And he didn't know what the word Su was in Chinese. So he looked it up in Chinese. And he goes, oh my God, Su means, back in the olden days when they caught fish, the certain way that they would cure it to keep it alive as long as possible, then it would hold the flavor as long as possible. Before they cured it, was quite cruel, and he described this way that they would hang the fish. And that's what it's called, Su. And Su Resurrection was that word, or resurrection, and below it was mountain. So the flute was called Resurrection Mountain.
Very cool.
But you don't really know what they mean, or meant. Okay, so after this one, we're gonna move on to the big let down with Scott's Rocky Joint. It sounds like a bard. Is that a Ryu? Is that a Shakuhachi Ryu? Scott's Rocky Joint. You all don't know that's Scott Myers? Scott Mayer? Okay, so we're gonna put Dale in there. Okay, so we're gonna put this aside in a safe, non-dusty place, because we're gonna come back to that probably. All right, I think we're good for that section. Are we, any questions about any of that? Slightly loose joint?
How would somebody who is allergic to the oil do this themselves?
Very carefully. You can. No, you can with gloves and a mask. If you know that you're one of those 1% like
Yeah,
or 2% like Barry, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you get a rash when you just go hiking sometimes and not know it? Yeah, you're one of those, right? Like most people know if they're that allergic because they get a rash. Like, where'd I get this rash from? Only 1% of the people in Japan are like that, and they know who they are because they can't eat off Japanese utensils, and they grew up like that, going, "Oh, I'm one of those guys," So they wear gloves, long sleeve shirts, a mask, and goggles, nice lighting, and know very well what you're doing.
Basically a hazmat suit.
Kind of. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
What if you put too much?
Does it?
Well, if you put too much urushi, I'll say it again. Don't do it. Just be mindful of how you work and don't put too much because then you have to clean up. And it takes twice as long. You saw how quick that went, right? If I just did one, it went quite quickly. If I had to clean it up, it would take 3 times as long to do one thing. Yeah. So carefully when you put a layer of urushi on your brush.
And then what do you do if after it's cured and
it's
the
wrinkled?
joint's too, and then I guess that or too tight. So think of where you could run into problems.
If it's too tight, you could wait a day or two and let it air out into the climate without, because it could be humidified and swollen, which happens, right? So you wait a day or two. But very often when it's loose, that thin layer is not enough to make it too tight. It would be ideal for it to be snug, and then you're done. And then it might loosen up in a week, and then it might be, but not too loose, because you already put the 2 layers on.
How do you clean that brush once you've?
Yes, I will talk about that when I get to cleaning. But basically, this oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, gets it off. Like that's why you said olive oil to clean. And you just when I took a urushi workshop. She left all her brushes with oil on it, other people will wash the oil off after, but, so it depends. Let's put this aside for now.
Perry, doesn't like Monty Levinson or somebody use like an artificial or some other lacquer that's a substitute?
Yes,
And I don't know if it does all those same things that Urushi does, but
basically, lacquer means urushi. Lacquer, the word means urushi. Anything that else that is not urushi that uses lacquer is synthetic lacquer. It's not real resinous, chemical, like chemical paint to be hard. But some people do that and call it lacquer. So whatever Monty uses, I don't know what it is, but it's not urushi, and it doesn't hold up as long as urushi. Yeah, and I don't say that in the bad thing to bad mouth what Monty does, but I've prepared work where I see Monty's paint chipping off. Urushi doesn't chip off in the same way like that. Urushi wears down. Urushi becomes part of the wood, and usually wears down. Urushi on plaster in the board is slightly different because the plaster sometimes is not natural depending on what the artist used. In the oldest shakuhachi, the artists used tonoko powder with urushi to make a plaster, and that is a natural thing with the bamboo, and that doesn't peel away like the contemporary flutes because it becomes one. It merges with the bamboo. Yeah, that's the idea of urushi when it's done though. Okay, Scott, let's see what you got.
You may want some sandpaper for the cleaning, because there's a lot of junk
Let's see what happens.
holding that together, so it would play notes,
Why don't we pass that around? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Don't take it apart. Just kind of like rock it and see, and then you all kind of know like, okay, that needs work, right? So basically, we're just talking about the fit of the joint and how do you restore or make that work in a snug, way that fits on and off in a nice way. It works, right? I've played plenty of flutes with a rocky joint like that works. It's just the owner might not feel good about that. And I think, as we all know, the better we feel about our instruments, the better we play it.
Do you name your flutes?
I don't.
I don't either, but people ask me all the time.
Yeah.
Perry, you'd have so many names. 'cause you
I
have so
know,
many
I'd run out of
But if you had like one that was like really good,
I have many, I have many that I really like and are my go-to flutes. I don't have names for them.
I'm naming this rock and roll.
That's almost as good as Scott's rocky joint. So basically, if I take it apart gently, you made this from scratch, right?
Yeah,
It's pretty
the
good.
whole thing.
Yeah, Jen made.
It's like a Frankenstein. I remade it like
Right,
five
right.
times to make it to play even, so.
I mean, it takes a lot of work to do this, right? If anybody's ever tried to make a mortise and tenon by hand and not by machine, it's a whole other skill set that
I
takes.
use a pocket knife.
Yeah, I mean. It's a lot.
And I like carved down a piece
Mhm,
of smaller
absolutely.
diameter bamboo. black
Absolutely.
bamboo, and put it, into
And that's how a lot of people do it. They put a different piece of bamboo, insert into here, right? It's a different piece of bamboo, and that's why they also change shapes because it's not the same piece of bamboo. Some contemporary makers put a piece of PVC here, right? And that's a different thing, So anyway, how do we fix this? And now, I would say, this is something that I don't know where I got this from, but I saw it one day and I went, oh my God, I could use that on fixing these rocky joints. I can't remember where it was, but so Scott, this is yours. Do you want?
Oh, do your
You want me
thing.
to do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to see what you do.
Okay, so basically, I would use this wax marker, laundry marker, right? So, and and I would draw lines on here. Maybe I should have wiped it off first, but let's see what happens. So, basically lines, right? And then I would draw lines in here. You know, every 2 or 3 millimeters. So Scott, anyone who does this kind of work has a lot of patience.
I was told patience is a vulture.
You cannot do this kind of work and be someone who needs to see results right away and fix it. This happens incrementally, you know. So now, what I do is I would fit it in here and twist it, right? And anywhere that the white is smeared is the high point on both sides, right? And then I would sand there, and I would do that over several sessions until I finally get it to go like a glove. It might take 1 session. It might take 6 sessions, right? Because we go on layer by layer, which means stronger joints. Thin layer by thin layer, stronger. If I slather it on, it might fit well for a week or 2 and then like start cracking.
So the rocking, you solve the rocking the same way you do the looseness, it's just you layer more urushi on it.
Well, with the looseness, it was a fit already. It wasn't non-concentric. This is non-concentric. Like, it doesn't really, fit well. So we had to make it fit like a glove. Your flutes already fit well, but it was loose, right? That's just tightening it. So you want to do this, Scott? You could put it in there and twist it. No?
No, I
Want me
want to
to
see you do it.
Okay. Basically, I'm just gonna slip it in.
I have years to
And I'm just gonna twist it. Not a lot, just a little bit. Okay. So I'll just show Scott first, and you can see it. I could have. You see where the whites are pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then where it's smeared.
Yeah.
Right.
Mid
Yes,
joint.
and obviously I would have a good lamp on it, and wherever it's smeared, I would have sandpaper, and I'll show you, or file to knock that part down. Do you see the inside where there's high points and clear white that's not touched?
Yeah.
Right. So those are areas you stay away from as you sand a little bit. Yeah. Let me just go around a bit. There's a pebble over here. Does anybody want to see that clearly, like wherever the smeared white was, laundry marker? Because remember, it was every millimeter or 2 was a line. And this is pretty smeared, but there's just a couple of points in there that's not touched, but you can see where that is. And this might be where this one is pretty smooth around. You might just sand it a little bit, but this one needs some work around with the high points and where it's not. Yeah, pass it around.
It's
Do it on
smeared
top.
everywhere.
So where it's remaining.
Can you see that well? What I mean is where it's smeared is where we're gonna knock it down a little bit, and where there's
You mean
white.
where it's disappeared?
Yeah, because it
There's more
rubbed.
on the inside.
The inside is not as
No, the
rocky.
inside of the,
We don't need to touch the inside. It's the outside that's the contact with the. So it's just
So it's the smeared spots or the clear spots that you're sanding?
the smeared spots, because that's where it's rubbing. That's where the high points are.
Okay, so you wanna sand those down and then add urushi so.
Yes, we're gonna build it back up evenly. So the parts where it looks like it's not touched with the clear white, we're not gonna touch those parts.
Okay.
And so it means carefully sanding around those.
So that's a fairly delicate sanding instrument that you've gotta have.
Well, we're gonna do it by
Sanding.
hand first, or a hand file, a soft hand file. So. Another way to approach this one is to not sand, because on this one, there are pits, right? That that we wanna maybe just fill to build up. So an interesting way of, you know, maybe to do this is that you clean off where those white parts that aren't touched, and you just dab urushi carefully there, and that's gonna build those pits up to meet whatever is already there. So you don't sand away, but you're just adding on this side. So there's different approaches. Also,
You figure you're working on just urushi, and you're not gonna be touching the underlying bamboo?
inside the joint, you mean?
Yeah,
We're not touching inside, we're just touching adjusting the fit on the out.
what I mean, when you're, the sanding, the material you're removing, when you're sanding, is that just gonna be strictly urushi at that point?
No, I see bamboo here,
Okay.
actually, you know, so it's a matter of making it just fit like a glove, right? Yeah. Okay, so, I wish I brought my lamp. Oh, you have this, yeah, okay. I also have something like that. What is that? Oh, no, that's okay, I can see well enough. Where am I? Okay.
You want a headlight?
No, I'm fine, I'm okay, thanks. Sometimes, yeah, so I have a file like that that's close to the size, you know, that I need to work with.
Yeah.
I really love this file, actually, I've been trying to find another one, a Nicholson with a,
Oh, yeah.
with a safe edge, so one side is smooth, that safe edge,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really, I use that a lot. I don't know if we need to do, you know what, maybe we do. So the other way to do this, other than carefully watching just the high points and knocking it down a little bit.
But don't you have to get the wax off before you put the urushi?
Yeah, we're gonna clean it.
It won't stick to wax.
There's wax on it now, right?
Well, you just put some, but yeah, there's a little wax on it too, yeah.
Wait, did we put that wax?
No,
Or the- yeah,
he's
yeah.
just
Oh,
talking about the
Depends.
laundry marker.
you're talking about
No,
the
there's
white,
some wax on there too.
the
that help
pomade, right, to keep it,
To keep it stuck, yeah.
yeah, that'll come off as I'm working on it right now, yeah. He's talking about that tin of grease that you should lubricate your joints with. It's a tin of like hair pomade I use, very thick viscous grease for your joints, as opposed to Vaseline or cork grease, which is too thin for Shakuhachi joints. Yeah, so,
What kind of grease do you recommend?
do I have it with me? Maybe I'll show you later. It's a hair pomade. It's very thick, it's like beeswax that people use to slick their hair back.
Oh,
It's
cool.
very thick,
Good
right?
mold you got.
Very
what about
viscous. Vaseline is too thin.
Vaseline.
Yes, too thin. Cork grease is too thin.
What? But if it stays together, why is it too thin? The cork,
Well,
you could do it without grease, and you put milk.
if your joints don't have grease in it, there's a potential of it not giving when they're moving, and it's kind of stuck, it can cause a crack. But if there's some kind of grease there, there's a give on both sides, very minor.
But you're saying it should be thick grease, not thin grease.
Yeah, because the thin grease is like Vaseline or cork grease, doesn't really help it slide in and off. It's not
Not thick enough.
viscous enough.
Not
right.
thick
I don't know if that, I mean, it might not make sense.
I
but,
understand.
Yeah,
enough. I get you.
I just assumed cork grease was the perfect thing, because they use it on musical instruments.
It is when you're using cork, you know, cork and metal, but not for this, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just gonna knock some of the high points off, and I'm gonna try it again. You know what I would do? Actually, better for this situation is a clamp. And I'm gonna use something like a shoe polishing method, slightly different. So every situation is different, right? You kind of have to decide as you're working what you think might be better. And some of you might need to come around if you want to get a good look. This is the best angle I can get this situation. Ideally, it'd be a nice straight angle. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this straight. Ideally, it'd be like that. Let's see. I don't know if it'll hold. Maybe. Just needed to hold it a little because I'm not pushing. Again, like what I said earlier was less is more. Actually. So basically, I'm going to shoe shine this, and it'll naturally knock off the high points. Oh, shoot. Maybe. Not a lot of pressure, just enough to do that.
Want me to hold that?
Oh, if you don't mind, thank you, Barry. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna release it. So basically, we're just gonna go little by little. And I see it's just kind of in the middle there. And then I'm gonna go back with the white. So all of this is very time consuming, obviously. And this is why Shakuhachi repair costs are not, so cheap. But, so basically I didn't do a lot, right? It's very gentle, just enough to hold it, light sanding. I'm gonna put my white lines back on here again. And it'll be a little looser, but it'll tell us something. So you see the same every millimeter or two. And we're gonna go back in here.
Oh, it's not so much.
Still rocks, because it didn't solve that. But it showed us again, if you could see, for the Scott's flute. You see where the point now is clearer, where I need to take down, right?
Yeah.
You can see it's clearer.
How is the rocking different than just being loose? I mean, I understand what's.
They're not like,
It's not concentric.
concentric, yeah, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Where loose is just both of them are the same, but,
Gotcha.
so there are high points in there that when I eventually, it's gonna just fit better in, like a jigsaw puzzle. And this, it might be that I'm just gonna do a little bit and add the urushi today, and then tomorrow we'll figure out if the rock was less or more, you know what I mean? I mean less, hopefully. Because obviously can't fix the rock because it's just gonna get loose and you can't tell anymore. But we wanna do a little bit to find out where the high points are and why, and to make it round basically, make both sides round, yeah. So this, again, maybe once if we're lucky, twice, but it could be a few more times. And then maybe, you know what? I'm gonna do what I said, the additive part. I'm gonna remember where the high points are in here, where the white didn't touch. And I'm gonna paint urushi there to build that up. So less is more, less is more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of tape where I see that on the outside,
Just mark it on the
and mark,
inside.
and just so I remember where, because I'm gonna remove the wax on the inside, and then where I paint the urushi. So I just remember that it's in the bottom of that. And maybe right in the, So just to talk to Scott, cause it's Scott's flute, I know that, see that part at the bottom?
Yeah.
If I fill that, that's gonna prevent the top of the joint from doing that, right?
Right.
So that's gonna prevent the rocking. That right there in the middle, that's not gonna affect the rocking, right, cause it's in the middle. Yeah, so just so we'll leave that alone. And you can see that the edges on the outside are all
Yeah.
removed almost, right? It's the white, so we don't need to actually touch that. Yeah, cause it's round. Right, okay, so I'm gonna double check before I,
So as you're building up the urushi, is that a multi-day process where you have to?
yeah. That's why, again, going back to the costs, Shakuhachi costs could be not, because you spend an hour on this one day, and then you're checking it later on tomorrow you check it, and you spend an hour again, and it might be 5 hours. But obviously you're not working the whole 5 hours, but your mind is on it, and your mind is, adjusting and watching, and it's all that attention is what you're paying for in the craftsman and the cleanliness of the work. And in Japan, that stuff is very expensive. Yeah. Okay, I think we're just gonna, I might do this one more time. I might do this because there was some high spots. Just very gently knock them down. And then we're gonna apply some urushi. And I think for today, we'll be done. Unless there are questions. And there are a few people who need something done, like Jairus. We're gonna do that. And you can stick around for that too. Jairus has a crack on his utaguchi that we do a quick temporary fix, which is really my talk tomorrow, but since you're here, we could do it quickly. Yeah. Okay. You wanna apply the rushi, Scott? You've done it before? Yeah.
I'm good.
You good? You good to go? Actually, we should. Does it play right now as it is?
It did before.
It did before.
Oh, boy.
When you can play row, it plays.
Yeah.
A little precarious, was it that way, or do you think
wa-
the row?
It was a little strong. I had it going stronger,
Okay.
but that's because I put junk around the joint.
Okay, yeah, it was a better seal.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. It definitely was the joint.
The fact that it plays the row means it's working. But a snug joint actually would make a row stronger. If you feel like, oh, my row's a little weak, it's not taking the air, could be that the joint is loose. And that's a common thing. We're gonna make sure it's cleaned up well.
So tomorrow's, repair workshop is in the morning.
Yes, is it 9:15? Is that what it says?
9:30, yeah. So do you suggest for those of us that got the joint done today, that we wait longer than that for it to?
It should be cured by tomorrow. Actually, with this temperature and humidity, sealed well, I think in 2 hours it's dry to the touch.
Okay.
But it might not be dry enough to, I think, where you wanna test it, but definitely by tomorrow. Yeah, so by 9.
I didn't know if people needed to put another coat on it, if we were doing that.
If we do, we could do that tomorrow.
Okay.
probably wouldn't take that long since
I was just wondering tomorrow or Sunday.
we'll do it tomorrow.
Okay.
We could test it tomorrow to see if it needs another coat.
Sounds good.
Let's see. Here we go. I mean, there's a high chance that it still is gonna rock. I'm assuming that it will still rock, but it'll be more concentric. Then we just know that, oh, we just need to build up the bottom of that and the top of this, you know what I mean, to prevent the rocking. Yeah. Actually, I just was spaced out, but it's not gonna hurt. We're just adding more rushi now than I thought I would on this side. I think you get a sense of, what this flute needs just by having worked it on, starting to work on it, having done quite a few of these, I get a sense of what it needs. It's a hunch. I think we need to build up the bottom end of this. So it might be a little more sanding on the top. And then not touching the bottom and just build up the bottom. So that right now it might be like that a little bit, the shape as opposed to just straight like right. So we're gonna work slowly on that, and also on this side to make it fit to where when you're twisting it around it just fits. Yeah. Okay. So
There's always a wood stove
a what?
solution. The wood stove.
Is that what it's called? The wood stove? I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with
that's
that.
when you go, next.
Oh. Oh, right. Actually, or the fireplace or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Tom Deaver said that once. So that's the flute for the fireplace.
Yeah.
Tom Deaver, yep. Okay, so I'm gonna do Jarvis's quick repairs, and I'm gonna probably figure out a safer way to make sure these are stored well. But, oh, actually, you know what? Let's clean this. So, the Charles question about cleaning, very simple. Actually, I don't have my tools that I normally would use, but this is the same. Or not the same, but it'll work. What do I do with the tissues? At home, I have a plate, a rushi plate, one of my favorite plates. I didn't bring it. I didn't want to crack it. Basically, I might save this for tomorrow. So, if this were my plate, put a little bit of the oil, and then bring the oil onto this urushi, and that'll lift it and break it down, basically.
And that will allow it to be usable longer?
The oil?
The urushi?
This is done. We're cleaning it up.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
you said you were saving it for tomorrow.
Oh, no, the plate, sorry.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna reuse this plastic plate tomorrow. Otherwise, I would throw it out, you know what I mean? But, so the oil basically, breaks down the urushi. And as I said, this professor, in an arts college in Osaka who taught urushi art, just wiped off her brushes after this. She never washed it off with any other cleaner. Other urushi people had washed it off with soap and water out there. I think somebody else said turpentine too. Was it Adam? Did you?
I mean,
Did you wash?
I would rather not inhale turpentine personally.
Right, I
Keep
don't
it
like
natural.
turpentine, right,
Yeah.
right. So
I
it's
think
just,
mineral spirits are a little bit safer, but
Mhm.
still.
right. So I'm just wiping the, like again, I'm not allergic to it. But if you were doing this, you might wanna wear gloves, rubber gloves, latex gloves. You can feel the urushi slide right off the brush. It's like, it was sticky before, but it comes right off. Nice. And now if I just twist the brush a little bit, get inside to the bristles, it's Professor, I can't remember her name, from Osaka. She just used this tomorrow. Done. Now, basically, if this were my urushi plate, oops, comes right off. But previously to that, it's very sticky, right?
Oh, wow.
Now, maybe we'll put something on top of that so no one touches that garbage. Okay, I mean, if you don't make a mess, it's an easy cleanup. Yeah, just be mindful as you're working to not make a mess. Okay, Jairus. I mean, we're done for today for the urushi joint. I think. Look, do you have any questions?
Oh, what is the wax you recommend?
The wax.
Yeah.
If you go to, let me see if it's here.
We don't have it in your
Beeswax
shop?
work?
Beeswax would work. It's a very thick, viscous grease, like car axle grease, kind of, but hair pomade, right? Look up hair pomade.
Hair pomade.
Maybe I have one in here. Let's see. Maybe it's in here.
There's so many different kinds.
There are many different kinds. You want to find the kind that's kind of like bees, that might even list beeswax as an ingredient.
I think it's called mushers wax for dogs' paws. It's pretty thick. I don't know if that's the right stuff.
It
but
could be. If it's
It's almost like a consistency of wax, something
Yeah.
you use to waterproof gloves or.
Yeah. I think you want just wax.
This
not
is
grease.
it.
Oh, let's see.
And like cork grease is good.
Cork
There's grease and
grease.
there's wax.
Yeah,
You want
wax. Something closer to wax is better. And you can open that up. Open that up and touch it. That tin.
What's that?
That tin is relatively new because I lost my other tin I've been using for 30 years. It'll last you forever, right?
It feels like the same.
Yeah, it'll last you forever. And it's the perfect joint grease, and it's something that Tom Deaver recommended when I met Tom, and it was like the perfect thing. Never felt bad about it.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Charles. I'll see you tomorrow.
So very quick question, you had mentioned somebody who created Nikos,
Somebody who what?
very good with ink
Right.
and identifying. The flute that I got it from Ronnie, and he told me it was Shakuhachi from Suki first.
Uh-huh.
But my yellow Shakuhachi thinks it's the second or the third, and it's got two Nikos. I never had anybody be able to.